Let's get sweaty.
Hey guys, welcome to another Shenmue Dojo video. This today is a character exploration video, and I'm going to explore a character that's been around a long time, but we've only had about 10 minutes worth of footage of her. And by saying her, I've given it away a little bit here. I wanted to talk about Niao. Now, she's been around Shenmue in concept art and everything for years, but we know very little about her. And I expect she's going to have a major role in the story going forward. So I wanted to talk a little bit about her background prior to Shenmue 3, the concept art, Shenmue 3 itself, and future story involvement. So let's start with a little summary of Niao. Now, there's not an awful lot out there. You have to dig around quite a lot for this sort of stuff. But we do know, and it's been stated for over 20 years, that she is a leader of Chi Men. She is in charge of the South, and that corroborates with her mythical beast, or heavenly beast, whatever you want to call it, which is the Red Phoenix, also known in sun circles as the Vermilion Bird. She's a practitioner of Tangwala Quan, I hope I pronounced that right, which is a martial art which takes inspiration from the movements of the praying mantis, which I found quite interesting, probably suits her character a little bit. Prior to Shenmue 3, she was in a lot of the promo material and merchandise, for example. So from the premiere, you had things like these phone cards. Let's bring that down so you can see that, and it zooms in. You can see that. Let's put my hand behind it. That's a bit better. Yeah, there we are. It's coming to zoom now. So she's in a lot of this concept art. And she was part of the big posters and everything around the premiere concept art. She's also, or it's thought at least, on the OST here for the orchestra version, that it's her face that's on the front cover. So she's got quite a prominent feeling already without really knowing too much about her. There's a video from the Shenmue premiere event which took place in Japan in December 1998. And it shows a snowy forest, which I think, was theorized at one point to be Tibet, but we don't know. And essentially, it's a little bit about her. Now, the translation from this video has been done. The video itself, I'll be honest with you, is shocking quality. I'd love a proper version of this thing. But the translation goes: one of the four leaders of the Chi Men in charge of the South. She wears a voluptuous red dress, and her manner seduces people. Now, keep that in mind. Her fearful eyes that pierce everything is always seeking targets. She takes pleasure in cruel actions and eliminates people just like bugs. Now, that probably sums it up quite nicely. I'm going to use the seduces bit separately in the future story involvement, but also she's seeking targets. Now, that's interesting. I think probably lends in a little bit to Shenmue 3 potentially, and I'll come on to that in a moment. Coming away from all of that, she's been, like I say, been around and been involved in the story for ages. She appears to be in charge of Zimming, which is shown in the Shenmue 2 comic of Zhuing, and you have the Yin Yang pendant. Obviously, she asks Zimming what's that all about, and he says you don't need to know about it, but she's present in that. She's also a very prominent figure in the chapter cards 5 and 6, which we now know covered Shenmue 3, which does beg the question, was there a bigger role for her potentially in the original story, which got cut, changed, whatever, I don't know. Her appearance has changed slightly over the years. If you look at Project Berkeley and the premiere, for example, her clothing is much closer to the Shenmue 3 version. The concept by Kenji Miyake is closer to the one that's in the video from the premiere. So there have been some very slight changes over time, sort of moving away from the original concept, moving back to something different, and then coming along into the sort of nearish the concept art and the final appearance that we got of her. She also, now this is how prominent she was. Now, part of this was, I think, appealing to teens in the 90s, noughties, is that she appeared on the front cover of Dreamcast magazine in the UK, and she was a prominent figure with the promotional material around some magazines going forward as well. So it says to me here that you've got this character we know not a lot about, but she's everywhere. She is put on a pedestal with Ren, Shenhua, Landi, Rio. She's all over the promo stuff. Why? Now that's an interesting question, which we'll come on to with the future story involvement. Shenmue 3 involvement. Now, there's going to be spoilers here, guys. So if you've watched this point, thank you. But you might want to skip this bit if you haven't played Shenmue 3 yet. So she first appears on the boat in Shenmue 3 as Ryo and Shenhua arrive in Niao under the alias of Li Feng. That's interesting. And I do wonder if this execution would have been done differently had they more time. She befriends Ryo and Shenhua before capturing Shenhua and informing Ryo where she is. Now, if you remember, in the Red Snake's hideout, she sat there putting leaves into the fire, and she says, "I own this now, and your friend is over at the castle." Now, that's an interesting point. Think back to the translation from the video, and it talks about that she is always seeking targets. Now, I don't know what she knows about Ryo, potentially, but him being linked to Shenhua, there's her target. So she's got to Ryo via Shenhua, and I would have loved to have seen how that played out more, potentially behind the scenes through character perspective system, whatever it was, to essentially flesh that out a little bit. But that fits her description from the premiere video in 1998, that she's looking for a way in to manipulate a situation and to seek a target, and she's done that quite successfully here. Let me say that. Obviously, then Ryo goes to the castle. He finds out that she's not Li Feng, but somebody else. Her name isn't explicitly spoken, but he recognizes her from being Li Feng. He hands over the real Phoenix mirror to Shenhua, and then Niao points Ryo in the direction of Landy. Now, that's interesting. So what does she know here? Again, is she manipulating Ryo to basically go after Landy? And we know that she then burns the castle down, aiming to take out Landy and take over the Chi Men, and possibly also take Ryo down. But I don't know whether she feels or knows what Ryo's role in this is, whether she really knows who he is and the link to Landy, I don't know, or whether she's just using him as a sort of a small pawn in a wider picture to take over the Chi Men. I don't know. Her reveal needs to be much bigger in Shenmue 3, and I think we can all agree on that. But then it sort of comes into the future story involvement here. So she set fire to the castle, tried to kill Landy and take over the Chi Men. Now, we already know that she has the Phoenix mirror. Ryo doesn't. That's a big plot change. I don't care what people say. That is a big plot change that he doesn't have the mirror anymore. We know Landy has, well, as far as we're aware, still has the dragon mirror. And we are assuming, it's pretty much intimated at the end of Shenmue 3 that he survives the fire in the castle. So, given this massive double cross of Landy, there needs to be an explanation here. Like, how does this play into one of them, both of them having a mirror each? They're probably both going to the Cliff Temple. So how is that going to play out? So there's going to be, in my mind, a big clash at the Cliff Temple. Who's going to come out on top of that, and what's going to happen here? Is she going to manipulate Ryo, Ren, and Shenhua to do her dirty work? Now, she could sort of set things up in a certain way that Ryo, obviously blinded by his lust for vengeance, goes straight after Landy. She almost guides it down there to distract him, while her plan, scheme, whatever, is sort of moved underneath it. There is also, in my mind at least, her ability to manipulate Ren, and it says that she can manipulate people, and she takes pleasure in doing this sort of thing. So, in that mind or mindset, could she use her looks or the promise of money to make Ren turn on Ryo, therefore leading into potentially Ren's redemption later on, that he may end up dying? I've said this before. It would fit her character. Bearing in mind she takes pleasure in cruel actions and eliminates people, she might see this as a means to an end. I mean, she's tried to kill Landy, for God's sake, so she doesn't mess about. Then there's Zimming. Now, Zimming himself, we know, again, not too much about, but there's already sort of a tear, or he's torn in what he's doing. He's gone to the Chi Men to seek his father's, or his parents' killers, rather. What or how is that going to play out? Will he turn on Niao? Will Xiuying potentially help this, or will meeting Ryo bring this on? For example, what if Ryo shows him Xiuying's half of the pendant, and then he's like, hang on a second, I know where that's come from. And that further those doubts that he turns on Niao, potentially with his redemption arc, or potentially doing it to save Ryo, save Xiuying. The plot's endless here. I'd love to see how that's going to play out. But Zimming and Niao are interlinked. It's blatantly obvious they're interlinked. I'd like to see how that's going to play out. And what's her working relationship with the other members of the Chi Yu Men? Now, we haven't been introduced to the other leaders. Now, there is a mention of them in Shenmue 3. There's a small news clip in Chai's room, which makes reference to Ryo taking out Dol Neo, but also reference to the other leaders. That's all we know. Are they all on a power play, or is it just her? And what about Tente? Is he watching this and sort of watching this unfold? Is this part of his wider plan? We don't know, but this is why the Shenmue story is so exciting and why Niao-san has got a really big role to play here. She is massively important to the story and is going to have a huge role, I think, going forward in resolving the conflicts within the Shenmue story. So that's a very quick summary of Niao-san, guys. What do you think about how her story is going to play out? What's she going to end up doing? Is she going to end up screwing Ren and like taking him on to take on Ryo? What is she going to do? How is she going to manipulate this situation to her benefit? And what do we think her end game is? And where do we think she'll end up at the end of all this? Give us a comment below, guys, with your thoughts. Don't forget to give us a like, share, subscribe on YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, all the usual channels, guys. And I will be back with a video in the not too distant future. But for now, guys, take care and have a good one.